Well, hello there, and welcome back to Corelli Computing Journey to a Smarter Home. As you can see, packing is still well underway. My home office slash studio is being torn down. It's heart-wrenching, but also really exciting. It's taking a break from all that packing because you can only do so much at once to get to part 2 of getting to that smarter home, trying out Home Assistant on the Raspberry Pi. Now, the last time you and I spoke, the Raspberry Pi was all set up. We had Home Assistant running. It has been running with no issues for a couple days now, but I haven't been able to do much with it. I still can only talk to Google Cast devices, and that's because we need to bridge that Z-Wave gap we were talking about last time. But in order to do that, we need to secure this Raspberry Pi because Samsung SmartThings wants to make sure that you're being secure, and good on them, because you should be secure. Encrypt all the things. So today what we're going to be doing is using DuckDNS and LetsEncrypt to create a secure connection to the Raspberry Pi from outside of our network. That should allow us to then add in the Samsung SmartThings integration, which, if all goes to plan, will let us use Home Assistant to control not only basic Google Cast devices, but also let us create a network that can control my myriad of Z-Wave devices. Light switches, power switches, thermostats. That's the big next step, and that's the thing I really want to test out, because if this works well, then suddenly we've got a really affordable solution that can let us do some pretty cool stuff. If it doesn't work well, then we learn a lot about ourselves along the way, and we try out other systems, because together we're going to get to a smarter home. But without further ado, and with some feedback and help from my friends at Reddit, we're going to start looking at how to get DuckDNS configured. And guys, I'm super excited. I finally got my screen capture software reinstalled. Shout out to Snagit. Let's see what we've got to do to get this thing going. Okay, so I started doing a walkthrough of setting up everything, uh, and it just kind of fell apart because one of the things I'm finding out with Home Assistant is it's important that you are prepared to do a lot of research, a lot of checking up on forums and Reddit, because when you come across little tiny problems, some things you can figure out yourself if you're relatively competent, but even if you are fairly competent, you're still going to need to find things. Little tiny things like, a space in front of a section of the YAML code, something that in any other type of code in any other area would not be a problem. Very problematic when it comes to Home Assistant. But the good news is, as I can show you here, we got set up. So we enabled DuckDNS and LetsEncrypt, and it worked very well once we got it set up. So under the HAS.io section, you'll see here DuckDNS is all green, and if we go into our DuckDNS, we can see we're running nicely here, and it reached out, and we would do a SmartThings connection with Samsung. Now that took a little more doing. It wanted to make sure we had everything exactly right with our SSL certificate, which is good. Again, encryption is good. Encrypt all the things. But once we got it set up, it instantly found all of the Z-Wave devices connected to our current first-gen SmartThings hub. So right from here, I'm able to control our backyard lights. I'm able to see the things in our bedroom, front door, hallway lights, kitchen lights, living room lights. Now, what's interesting is you see here it says Nest Presence under living room. Now, Google has recently announced that they're deprecating the connection with the Nest Developer API, and they're rolling it into the Works with Google. So rather than Works with Nest, it's Works with Google. They've backtracked a little bit on it, saying they're not going to kill off all the connections, but they are still going to move them and rebrand them. I get why they're doing that from a company standpoint. It makes sense. The problem is we can no longer integrate with Nest if you don't already have the developer account. So let me show you what I mean. So right now we can see the Nest thermostat. but we can't see what the temperature is on it. We just see the presence sensor, which SmartThings uses as a presence sensor to say, hey, I see someone moving, and therefore someone is present in the home. But we don't see the actual thermostat. We don't see the actual temperature or have the ability to adjust it. In addition to that, this house that we're in currently, our old house, is completely kitted out with Nest Protects. Those are Nest fire alarms and carbon monoxide alarms in every single room that can also serve as presence sensors. They have other sensors as well, but none of those show up here under Samsung SmartThings. And finally, with Nest, our entry sensors in this house are all Nest entry sensors. This was a whole Nest Protect system that we're keeping here at the house when we give it to the new buyer. And those entry sensors would be very useful for setting up automations. Unfortunately, we can't use them because they don't connect through SmartThings. They connect through Nest. Now, in the new home, we're going to be using different sensors, so that problem kind of goes away. So that drawback to Home Assistant kind of disappears. But it's worth noting for anyone who's looking at doing Home Assistant, and they do have a house that has Nest sensors for their doors and windows. But let me just show you again what that looks like. So if we go to our configuration, and we go to our integrations, we have our Google Cast, we have our SmartThings, and if we try to add Nest, it warns us, hey, you need to configure with Nest before you can authenticate with it. Now, in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and bring you to the Home Assistant website, and this is the breakdown on what you have to do to set up your Nest connection. Most importantly, you have to have a developer account. So if we click on Nest Developers, here's our notice. Hey, this is going to be going away. We're retiring it. But let's say I want to go ahead and get started now. And I want to sign up. You do not have the ability to sign up. This is the only page you can get to. So we're on the developer/new web page. This is the only text they give you. If you go to these other pages, they talk about the Google Assistant program, which is really neat, really cool, has a lot of neat things it can do, but we are unable to create that Nest developer account, which means we are unable to connect Home Assistant to Nest. So that's a pretty major drawback. Hopefully, once they have everything moved over to Works with Google, they make good on their word and enable these deeper connections via the API that they're going to be providing. But as of right now, if you didn't already have that developer account set up, it looks like you can't get it set up. Maybe I'm missing something. If I'm missing something, let me know, because it would be great to test that out as well. But even with that aside, this is pretty exciting. Again, this is all running off of a little $49 box that we put together in about an hour, and we're now able to talk to and connect to all of our Z-Wave devices, again, using that old SmartThings hub. So the next test will have to be getting that USB stick, since we're going to likely need to leave that SmartThings hub here at the current home. So we'll need to get the little USB stick and see if we still get this in-depth integration, and also what the range is. So, relatively successful night tonight. We were able to get the Home Assistant set up with SSL. I didn't get to go into as much detail as I wanted on the nitty-gritty of how to do that. I'll include some links in the description on the YouTube video below. Some great walkthroughs and tutorials on the step-by-step to how to enable SSL via DuckDNS and LetsEncrypt. It works great. I can now access my my Home Assistant and my SmartThings through my Home Assistant while I'm outside the house. That's really cool. We actually are able to bring it up on the website on your phone too, so you actually get this really great phone interface that lets you go through and control everything in your house just from your phone. And an app would be better. Obviously, native apps are always great, but this website is really touch enabled. It works really, really, really well, and it is added to the screen as a button. So in reality, it's like the old Steve Jobs adage, who wants apps on their phones? Web apps are the way of the future, which he then gave up on, and then they came back to, but that's a different discussion. So the web app is extraordinarily responsive. The time to turn things, let me see if I can show you this. So I'm going to rotate my camera a little bit. You're going to get a little peek behind the scenes. So don't mind my Legally Blonde the musical poster over here. One of the best musicals ever. We'll leave that discussion for a musical day. So we have this lovely lamp right here. This lamp itself is not smart. It's plugged into a SmartThings enabled or a Z-Wave enabled outlet. So now with the app, I'm going to go ahead and, let's see if we can get this zoomed in here. This is great television. And we're going to go ahead and turn off and on. And look how quick that is. That is insanely fast. Anyone who's used SmartThings, that is very, very quick. So I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the local home hub control. I mean, SmartThings is great. Nest is great, but those rely on going out to the cloud. We could lose our internet connection right now, and I would still be able to control that light. And it seems like such a simple thing, right? If you don't have a smart home, of course, you flip your switch, you have local control. But as you start moving to automated systems, you rely heavily on the cloud. And I'm a huge proponent of the cloud. And there are aspects of this setup, including using the SmartThings hub, which is one of the reasons I want to get that Z-Wave USB stick rather than using the hub as the bridge, that require an external connection to work properly. And Home Assistant lets you not do that. I can talk to my devices directly on my network. It's more secure and it's way faster. So I think part 2 of Home Assistant, getting the SSL set up and trying that connection, that bridge with the SmartThings system, is working really well. So the next thing is to get that USB stick in and try it out with Z-Wave directly coming from that little tiny Raspberry Pi rather than using Samsung's backbone, because that will be the true test of offline access as well as the range of that little Pi. Now, the house we're in right now is much smaller than our new home, so it won't be a good one-to-one test, but it'll give us a good idea of if this is even a viable alternative. So far, I'm pretty stoked about this. So what are your thoughts? I hope that this was helpful and informative. Again, I didn't want to get too much into the nitty-gritty and the back and forth and editing of the code in Home Assistant to get that cert working. If you are interested in that, or you'd like a video that gets into that nitty-gritty, let me know. I'd be happy to make one. But again, check the comments below, because we'll have some links to some great guides and some great YouTube walkthroughs from some awesome content creators that go in depth in how to set that stuff up. Anywho, that's it for tonight. So thanks for joining me. It's been fun. We've been learning. And this is Corelli Computing, and we're on a journey to a smarter home.